Everyone, my name is Abhishek Jain, and through this video, I'm going to start a new tutorial series on InfluxDB version 2, which is a time series database. And this version 2 has a lot of other options with a UI. When I start using it, I really find it very easy to use and very easy to integrate in your application if you want to, right? So how are we gonna progress in this tutorial series is I'm going to install or set up the InfluxDB with the help of Docker, right? So that this tutorial series will be applicable for all kind of operating system, right? But if you don't have a Docker, you can just go to the InfluxDB website and you can just find out the corresponding installation based on the operating system you are having. But I would highly recommend, if you want to follow along with this entire tutorial series, use a Docker so that it would be very easy for you to just follow along whatever I'm going to explain, right? So in that way, learning InfluxDB is going to be very easy and it's going to be very interesting and enjoyable for you, right? So I just kept some notes, right, from the website. So first of all, InfluxDB is a time series database. So now in InfluxDB version 2, what it does, it's can collect the data, store the data, process it out, and and I will explain you how you can process the collected data, because now we have a Flux query which is having bunch of functions, and you can use those functions to just process your data as well. And the good part is now with this Docker version, with the version 2, you can visualize your data at the real time as well. You don't need to have your Grafana or your own UI, right? So that's the great part of it, right? Now, before we jump into the very basic, how, InfluxDB stores the data, what is time series database, let's first try to set up this. And before we set up this, let's quickly just go through this Docker command, what exactly it is doing. So we are just creating a container name with InfluxDB_tutorial for the image InfluxDB2, publishing the port on my host machine on 8087. Internally by default it run on 8086. You can see the configuration if you are interested in. Mounting 2 volumes. The first one is for data, another one is for the config, right? So I'm using volume so that if I want to take this to the another Docker version, I can easily do that. Then I'm just setting bunch of environment variables. Let's just quickly go through all these environment variables. First one is, which says that Docker InfluxDB init node. What I'm saying here is whatever the initial setup or initialization is required for the InfluxDB, just go with this initialization with the setup itself, right? Whatever setup is needed, just do it in the initialization. Then I'm defining a username, because this username we're going to use once we start this command. We're going to get a UI on 8087, which is our host port, where we are exposing this port. Then this is the username we're going to use to just log into the system. And this is the password which we're going to use, right? This is organization. Organization means it's just that, if you have multiple organizations, you can just use those multiple, just kind of, giving isolation to your data. Then we have a bucket. Right. So bucket, it's a very technical component. It's a very technical concept. Let's, try to understand this with once we have this UI up and running, and then we can just go through to understand what exactly the bucket is, why InfluxDB is using bucket, right? So let's first run this, and then we can just go through with all the concept and the theory, and then we're gonna do some, demo part or some experimentation. Okay, so I ran it. That's good. It's running on 8087. So like this. Okay. So as we know, the password hash. Okay. So once you just log into this, it's very easy. I will just provide that Docker command in the description or in the GitHub. Now on the left side, here we have this option. You can just expand it. Now we have this load data explorer. We can just go through with all these in future section. But for now, the interesting thing is load the data, right? So before we are loading the data, we have to understand what all options we have. First of all, we're going to concentrate on this file upload. So upload CSV or LineProtocol file. So LineProtocol file is really important to start with InfluxDB, right? So now it now we reach to the point where we really need to understand the specific, about, let's cover some theory first, and then we're just going to talk about the line. So what exactly the time series data, right? So as per definition, time series is the sequence of data point indexed in a time order, so basically what we are saying is in time order, in regular time interval, not regular, irregular, but what we want is we want to capture the data which is actually indexed at the waste of time. So there are a lot of attributes, right, which we want to analyze, which we want to analyze, which we want to check, in the context of time. So for example, I just placed some example. Stock price is the best example, right? Electrical activity in the brain, right? Because for every millisecond, microsecond, we want to capture all these information so that we can get a sense out of the data, So time series means with respect to time, there would be a lot of attributes which are going to be changed, right? We're going to see this with some examples so that this will make more sense to you. Now, the question comes into the mind, how on InfluxDB dedicatedly organize the data, which is optimized and efficient for time series data, because we can understand. If we are talking about microseconds, milliseconds, and nanoseconds, means that we're going to get millions of records so soon, right? So definitely InfluxDB has done some kind of magic in architecting its system so that it can store a data in a way which can be efficiently not only stored, but we can query that data and we can just visualize the data as well. And that is where, we came to the point where we have to understand the very fundamental concept of InfluxDB, how it stores actually the data, right? That is where this buckets comes into the picture. So now you can start relating the things. When we start the Docker command, we said that, okay, this is the bucket which we want. First underscore bucket, right? So bucket is nothing but you can understand, if you have a relational database server, and if you create a database, right? So database is, you can understand like buckets, right? So this is just a very high level, name for your data, right? A specific data which belongs to one category. Inside the bucket, right, we have measurements, right? So measurement, you can understand like tables, right? In relational database, there is no concept of schema for now, but definitely, in cloud version, I think they have some bucket schema as well. But for now, what you can understand, bucket is just related to like a database. There is no schema. We are just understanding like measurement is just a table which is lying in a public schema, because there is no concept in schema for now. Then, so measurement is just your table. Tags, right? Tags means, so first of all, before we move to the tags, in one bucket, you can have n number of measurements. So you can have multiple measurements, right? We're going to see how we're going to create them. Within a measurement, you can have multiple tags. Tags are how we can understand that tags are nothing but it just those key and values which are not going to change very frequently. It's just kind of giving a sense of what kind of attributes you are capturing, right? You're going to understand this, with one basic example. So I can say that tags, you can understand like it's a column for your table where you define what kind of data type you're going to get. Then fields are the actual key values where you are actually going to get the data, which is continuously going to change with respect to time. Right? So tags are kind of a column which is not going to change very frequently with respect to time, but fields are the values or the field, all fields are the values or the attributes which are going to change so frequently with respect to time. The last one is the most important one, is the timestamp. Here in InfluxDB, you can store the data in 4 levels: seconds, milliseconds, microseconds, and nanoseconds, right? These are just a basic concept. Let's come back to the UI part and try to understand whatever we have covered so far, right? Now, we have covered that bucket is nothing but, it's just a very high level kind of logical, physical space where we are actually going to store one kind of data, and it can have multiple tables or it can have multiple measurements. Right? Now, if you just come down here and load data, like first we saw source, then we just come down here bucket. In bucket, we can see 3 buckets: underscore task, underscore monitoring. These are the system bucket. As you can see here, it is mentioned. We don't need to worry about them. But this is first underscore bucket, which we just set to our Docker command when we were just installing InfluxDB, that we want this bucket to be created, right? If I want to add the data, so I click on this add data and I can see 5 options here. Configure telegraph agent, which we're gonna cover in future. Line protocol, this is what we're gonna use. CSP upload, we're gonna see in future. Client library, we're gonna cover in future, right? Scrap matrix also. So in this time, we are going to use line protocol. This is one way to just reach to the line protocol. The other way could be click on load data. Here you can see file upload. Inside this, we have three options: upload CSV, line protocol, and flex. Click on line protocol, we are at the same. Now, the important part here is InfluxDB. When you enter the data through the UI, it create its own protocol, which it's calling as a line protocol, and it has a very defined structure, though it's very flexible, but it says that if you want to feed the data to the InfluxDB, then how you should construct your text, which they are calling as a line protocol. So I just created one simple example through which we want to understand this. Here, if you just see, this is my simple text, right? So we have host, right? Then we have machine name, then we have region, and we have zone, then we have CPU and memory, right? So basically just try to understand if we have multiple regions, in cloud for AWS, and then we have multiple zones, and every zone has some bunch of tables, and we want to capture the CPU memory, how we can do, right? So by theory, definition for line protocol is a text format used by InfluxDB, a time series database to write data points. It specifies how data is structured for InfluxDB to understand the process and process it for storage and retrieval, right? You don't have to worry about theory, just understand this one, right? Here, I just dissected this entire line where I say that whatever we have before first comma, this is actually going to act as a measure, right? So once you write this line, what InfluxDB is going to do is so upload file, we are not going to use it. We are going to use this interval. So the before first comma, whatever we have, this is actually going to be a name of our measure. So we don't have to worry about it. InfluxDB is going to create that for us. After the first comma, whatever the key value pair we have, this is the first key value, machine underscore name equals to host one. This is my first tag. Then we have a second tag. Until or unless, we don't have any space, we consider all of them as another tag. So now we have this reason, then we have zone. So we have three tags. And once we feel that, okay, for this measurement, we only need three tags, then we can just provide a space. The space is going to indicate to the InfluxDB, now you are going to feed in the fields where you are actually going to store the actual values for the attributes which are going to be changed so frequently, right? So here we are saying that, okay, now CPU and the memory, these are the two attributes, and then we have an actual value. So after first comma, whatever key value pair we have before the first space, all those key values are going to be tags for us, which are not going to change so frequently. But these two values, which are field, which are continuously going to change. Now, in which precision we want to change? Here, this is where, InfluxDB says seconds, milliseconds, microseconds, and nanoseconds. Right? I can say seconds, and I can write the data. Right? I haven't done anything. I just use a line protocol, whatever structure InfluxDB says, and I just put it here. And let's go to the data explorer, which is another option. And here you can see this query section. Here we see those monitoring tasks. We should not be worried about them. First bucket, right? Now you can see we have host. Here you can see the measurement, the filter, measurement, and then we can select a host. Once I select a host, I got the CPU and memory. I haven't done it. Now, whatever tags we have, now you can start seeing all those. Machine name, reason, name. If you want to filter your data with host name also, you can do that. If you don't want to do it, here, this is the time duration or the time range. So we have, you can select 1 minute. You can say, just put 5 minutes, right? It's graph. There is not much point to showcase. So here we can see we have 1 record, right? This is what we have entered. Here we are seeing only 1 record because we have selected here. If you just see in a feed, I have just selected CPU. If I click on memory, let's see what happens. Now I can see 2 records, right? So what is happening? I just inserted a 1 record, but InfluxDB uses those values when I'm just querying it, depending upon what kind of query I'm building, based on that, it is just extracting the record. So right now we have only one record, but InfluxDB converting into two records depending upon what kind of query I'm building. This is just a simple way through UI you can build your query. Another thing is you can click on this script editor. Here you are seeing how this query actually looks like. And this is where this Flux is being used, which is a specific query language which InfluxDB has built. Here, they are actually using a functional programming concept because they have provided, if you just see here, some bunch of functions like from is a function, range, filter. We're going to talk about all these things in a future video. I don't want to complicate this first with them, right? So this is how this looks like. And let's see if we can insert some more records. So I'm again going back to the load data, LineProtocol. First bucket is clicked, enter manually. What I'm going to do now is pick the records. See, I'm not changing anything much. Okay. My tags names are almost same. CPU change. Seconds, data, successful, data explorer. So let's see, 5 minutes. Okay, first one. So this is how we can see the data. We can create the measurement, and now see we are getting our graph as well, right? And that is where I told that this version 2 seems to be very promising to me because it's very easy to use. All you need to do is to just feed in your data. Right now we have just fed in the data through the UI. As if you just go back to the load data and if you just see the concept, we can use a CSV, right? So if you have a CSV which keep getting created at one location, you can just use that CSV, feed into the InfluxDB, and you can just capture that data. Then we have a bunch of client libraries, whatever the programming language you know, and whatever the programming language you are comfortable with, you can use that as well to write your own program, which is feeding the InfluxDB. Then we have a Telegraph plugins, right, which actually has very, very rich support for all kind of data source which you can think of, right? So I was just trying to gather, what kind of data sources which we can have and how Telegraph can help us. So Telegraph is nothing but just an agent which actually help us to, integrate with a lot of sources where you can extract the data. Like, if you have mobile apps, web apps, cloud services, devices, sensor, database, networks, message queues, you can use that. In future video, we're going to see how we can use the Telegraph. If I just coming back, we have hundreds of plugins, which has different kind of sources, and whatever sources you want to use for your use case, you can use the Telegraph plugin as well. But if you feel comfortable writing on your own client, you can choose the programming language because it has a bunch of programming, mostly used programming language. You can find the client as well, right? And this very good, right? If you just click on Python, you can see how you can just set that up. Awesome. So what we have covered, we install the InfluxDB. We try to see, how we can create the bucket, with the Docker command itself. Then we try to put some data. Then we try to query the data. Then we try to just see how we can visualize the data, right? The other thing, which is very simple, if you want to create, any bucket, click here on a bucket. You can just create a bucket here. You can just give, any name like second bucket if you want, or some meaningful name. Never, if you want, delete never. If you want to click on older than, you can say that, how long you want to retain that bucket, right? For 30 days. There is a bunch of information, 6 hours, 12 hours. If you want to do this, you can just do it. You can use the custom duration as well. So automatically it is going to be deleted by 2 days. Let's put in 1 day. Right. So whenever we want to create a new tutorial series, let's see, if we can find this. If I just create the next one is just 1 day, probably we will have this. Otherwise, if I just take more than 1 day, then probably this second topic will be gone because InfluxDB has a just retention period for 1 day. That's another thing. So I think that's it. That's pretty much it, which I want to cover for this first part, where we understood what's the how we can install it with the Docker, what are the basic concept of what is TimeSeries database. Now we understand, if we have a timestamp index, then we are calling it as a time series database. Then we have 5 major concepts, like we have bucket, then we have measurement, then we have tags, then we have feeds, and then we have timestamp. And just to, we don't have to do a lot of things by ourselves. All we need to do is to just create a line protocol, and then line protocol is going to take care of creating all those kind of things for us, right? Then we have a UI based retrieval of data. Yeah, we don't have to do a lot of things, because in Data Explorer, you can just get all the assistants to just create your own query. Like you can select the bucket, then you can select the host, you can select which field you want to use. You can choose which tag you want to use. You can click on that, automatically it is going to create the query for you, and you will get all the data, right? So just put one alert, right? See, it's all easy, right? So I would suggest, I will just provide that Docker command into the description part. You can just play with it. And probably in a future video, in the next video, we try to just play with some more complicated situations, and probably we can use a Python based client to just interact with this, because in real time you're not going to feed in a lot of data with the UI, which is not feasible thing, right? So you have to either use a client library, you have to use either a CSV. So probably in the next video we're going to cover that part, and in future video we're going to see some frequently used Telegraph plugin as well, how we can use it so that we can just feed in the data automatically. So thanks for watching this, and as always, keep learning a new thing and stay healthy.